Hey everyone, Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Today we talk about day 2 at OTAs. We got to talk to Joey Porter Jr. and Darius Slay. Want to talk about their impact on the secondary and potential working together. Also, our chance to talk with Broderick Jones all here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. All right, Steelers fans, let's get into day 2 of OTAs. You know, as always, OTAs, just the process of everyone getting familiar with things, getting set with where their roles are going to be. We talked yesterday about Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu, obviously being at left and right tackle and being at the positions that we've been talking about them supposed to be since they drafted Troy Fautanu last year. We'll get more into that because we did get a chance to talk to Broderick Jones, and it was interesting some of the things that he said. But I want to lead off about Joey Porter Jr. and Darius Slay because we got a chance to talk to them. And I thought it was interesting to see how their dynamics were and to see how they talked about the opportunities. I also wrote about my talks with them in the Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com, in how they're excited to play with each other. But let's lead off by hearing from Joey Porter Jr. because he spoke, and I thought it was interesting some of the things that he brought up because Joey Porter Jr., as we know, is in a very pivotal year in his career. Joey Porter Jr. is in his third year. He's a second-round pick, a high second-round pick for the Steelers from the 2023 draft class, the first draft class of Omar Khan's tenure and as GM. And if the Steelers are going to make plans for him to be the long-term plan at cornerback, this needs to be the year that he proves them so that when they go into next season, it's less of a question about re-signing him going into his final season of his rookie year deal if they want to keep him long-term. So he needs to take significant steps forward. And he's had good moments, but he's also had bad moments. Here was Joey Porter Jr. We got to ask him a few questions about where everything's been going with him and how he's been progressing heading into his third season.
Sorry if you asked this already, but what's the difference with Gerald Alexander? What kind of ways is he trying to differentiate himself and how he coaches you to be a better cornerback?
I mean, it's cool. It's great to have him back in the building. I had him my rookie year, so I already had that relationship with him. He was a great guy. He was a great mentor to me in the room. So the fact that we got him back, he just brings that energy, that juice, and that physicality that we need as a secondary. So we're all excited for him to be back in the building and get to work. When you left with your exit interviews going into this, what were the things that you wanted to focus on as far as just making sure you're prepared to hit the ground running this year, things that you worked on? Man, just like I said before, just cleaning up the little stuff that I watched on tape. You know, when I go back on tape, there's nothing really drastic that sticks out. There's nobody that out there that's beating me by yards. So just the little things that I need to clean up in my technique, and I feel like I've been working on that this whole offseason. So I'm just excited to put that on tape.
How would you describe Slay's personality?
I mean, this is my first day really meeting him. He's a cool dude. You know, I told him I used to watch his tape growing up. So I know a lot of guys don't like when I say that because they feel old, but you know, he's been in this league for a long time. He's a great vet. You know, I had some great vets before him, so I'm just happy to have him in the building and keep learning from him.
When you saw tape, was
part of this that you've had a different veteran across you each year. You can kind of learn something different from each one of those guys.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty cool, and it's not even that. I just get to make longtime friends in the long run. You know, I could call Pat Pete any day of the week. I could call Deontay any day of the week. And now I'm going to make that relationship with Slay where it could be the same thing. So it's just not really on the field. It's also off the field connections with Joey.
So Joey Porter Jr. talking about a few things there, but I want to go back to one thing that he was talking about, you know, as far as what he plans to be doing and, you know, where he was coming out last year and what they focused on. Because if you watch the Hard Knocks series that HBO Max or whatever they're calling themselves now did on the AFC North, one of the last things they showed of the Steelers in the season was a lot of their exit interviews or just a lot of their final interactions. And Grady Brown, the Steelers defensive backs coach from last season, got a chance to sit down with Joey Porter Jr. and he talked about stepping up and what he needs to do to perfect this game. And one of the things that's very noticeable about Joey Porter's game is that he led the NFL and all of NFL cornerbacks in penalties last year, and a lot of it came from holding. And as I've said, when you study on where a lot of those holding penalties come, they came when the ball was in the air, when he didn't trust his work. And sometimes it was that he got beat and he was trying to catch up. You know, covering guys like Jamar Chase can be a difficult challenge for any cornerback. But there were several of these penalties where he really was in position to the point that he didn't need to do that. He needed to trust that his work was solid and he could turn, look for the ball, and make a play on the ball. And those are the things that I think could be the right mesh for Joey Porter Jr. to improve if he's able to put that together. And to do that, the Steelers paired him with a guy who led the NFL or tied for the lead in the NFL in forced incompletions last year, that being Darius Slay, a guy who, one, knows how to use his instincts to be in position to win at the cornerback position, but also, two, to have good instincts to play the ball. And if Joey Porter Jr. can just add to that part to his game, he becomes such a bigger asset to what the Steelers need on defense. And let's be real, if the Steelers get a top flight cornerback on their team again, it makes everything so much tougher to attack against this defense, because then you're putting him on someone else's number one wide receiver. That receiver isn't getting open so quick. And then when they're not getting open so quick, you can say, hey, we're going to press. We're going to take away those quick passes. Then the quarterbacks have to hold on to the ball. And that allows guys like TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, Derek Harmon, Keanu Benton, all those guys they've been setting up on the front lines. It's going to give them time to get after the quarterback. And that's when you start to create more problems and to win more battles on defense. But the cornerback is a needed position to succeed in the NFL. It's one of the more important positions. And that's where they need Joey Porter Jr. to improve. When you look at where he sort of helped the Steelers last year, it was being in position. He plays a lot of man coverage, but last year, because of their situation around Joey Porter Jr., they couldn't play as a team a lot of man coverage. They mixed in a lot of zone, a lot of cover three, and that's where I think that Joey Porter Jr. needs to be able to learn how to be better there as well. When he plays in man coverage, he's running, he's bumping and running, he's sticking with guys, and it's easier for him to stick with them and feel confident enough to play the ball. But when he was in man coverage and off coverage, that's where you saw more of those mistakes, because he couldn't just stick with the guy. He had to kind of anticipate a little bit more. And that's where he also admitted, like, hey, Darius Slay makes a lot of play these days from off-ball coverage and that zone coverage situations. And that's something that Darius Slay can help him with. And I think that's going to be a big part of this. We're going to talk more about this in the next segment too. But Darius Slay's ability to break up passes, when I talked about how forced incompletions, basically a pace where either they broke up the pass or they were the reason why the ball was incomplete at the cornerback position, Darius Slay had the most of those such plays in the NFL with 17, tying Denzel Ward of the Browns. 10 of those 17 plays came in zone coverage for Darius Slay. So I think it'll be interesting to see how he contributes with Joey Porter Jr. as they both compete. And we're going to talk more about Slay specifically in the next segment. But Joey Porter Jr., if he can take that aspect of Slay's game, adapt it to his, it'll be a real opportunity for him to go from a solid young cornerback to being a very good veteran quarterback that the Steelers will want to pay an extension to and keep him around. And mind you, this will also be the third year that Joey Porter Jr. has gotten a chance to play next to a veteran cornerback in the NFL. In his first year, of course, he had Patrick Peterson, a longtime All-Pro, most likely going to be a Hall of Fame cornerback when his day comes for Canton. Last year, he got Dante Jackson, not a former All-Pro the way that Patrick Peterson is, but an experienced veteran who made his way in the NFL and has been a good cornerback for most of his career. And then now you have Darius Slay, a guy who doesn't have the resume of a Patrick Peterson, but has been in first team All-Pro, has just come off a Super Bowl champion season with the Eagles, and has a lot to teach Porter. And if Porter can be that guy that learns all those things and applies it to his game and puts it out on the field, like I think he can, because whenever you talk to Joey Porter Jr., you hear how well spoken he is. That guy, he takes in a lot of information and he learns from it and he adapts it to his game. He has a football mind, he's a football thinker, and he's a football player. And when you put all those things together, usually you get good results when they do take on the lessons. And that's where I think that Joey Porter Jr. can turn into the CB1 of the future for the Steelers, who they depend upon to take away top receivers and be that guy at the cornerback position. But like I also said, Darius Slay plays a role in this. We talked to Darius Slay as well. We'll show more of that next, and more on how both of these guys can work well as a tandem for the Steelers secondary. That's next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast as we continue our coverage of OTAs after day 2 of OTAs at the Steelers practice facility. Stick with us. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We got a lot to discuss right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We'll be right back. But first, I remind you this show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. Every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live throughout the games. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have many more ways than ever before to play smart and win big. The Knicks and Pacers face off in the East, while the Timberwolves and the Thunder throw down in the West. That means stars like Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson, SGA, Tyrese Halliburton are all sure to light up box scores and win people plenty of money with their prop bets. And now, if you're new to FanDuel, you can cash in big by winning $200 in bonus bets if you hit on your first bet of $5 or more. That's right. Go to FanDuel.com to sign up for that opportunity today. Place your first bet of $5 or more, and if it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our show here as we discuss Steelers OTAs. When we keep it in the secondary, because I want to also get you a chance to hear from Darius Slay. We did hear from him when he first arrived, or the Steelers first signed him in free agency, and he showed up in Pittsburgh, and he talked about his excitement to play under Mike Tomlin. But now we get the chance to talk to him after he's had his first day getting to know Joey Porter Jr. and what he expects out of the secondary. One thing that I think is also going to be really interesting for both Joey Porter Jr. and Darius Slay is that they're both getting to know each other from different perspectives. Joey Porter Jr. was a high school player when Darius Slay was a high school freshman, actually, when Darius Slay won first team All-Pro as a cornerback for the Lions back in 2017. That's how difference of an age they are now. Darius Slay is entering his 13th season in the NFL as Joey Porter Jr. enters his third. But also when you add in that, Joey Porter Jr. used to watch Darius Slay and learn from him as a young player. I think there's a lot of room for these two to develop as a duo, and especially when you look at also they're both reuniting with former coaches that they've worked with earlier in their career. Joey Porter Jr. talked a little bit about his excitement of working with Gerald Alexander, Steelers new defensive backs coach. Now, new is in parentheses there because he used to be the assistant defensive backs coach back in 2023. He left that job for a job to coach the Raiders safeties. Then last year, then that was only a 1-year deal. He comes back to the Steelers this year as their head defensive backs coach, as they let go Grady Brown, who was the guy that gave Joey Porter his exit interview last season. But Gerald Alexander comes back to the Steelers, and Joey Porter Jr. talked about how excited he was about that opportunity because they're familiar with each other. And as I've talked before, Gerald Alexander, if you're around him in training camp, he makes his presence known. He's not going to let you skirt by. He's not going to bring something up if he sees a mistake. He's not going to bring it up in film practice. He's going to bring it up right then and there. He's going to let you know that you need to be better, and that's going to be, I think, a refreshing way of approaching things. Deshaun Elliott talked about how on a Tuesday talked about how he liked his approach to things, and I think Joey Porter Jr. is going to welcome it as well. And Joey Porter Jr. made sure to also pay respects to Grady Brown for his work with him over the past few years, but he's excited for that. Meanwhile, Darius Slay, he's reuniting with another former coach of his, and that's Terrell Austin, the Steelers defensive coordinator. If you don't remember, Terrell Austin also had time as the Lions defensive coordinator, and he was a guy who coached up Darius Slay from being a second-year cornerback who had a lot to prove to being a first-team All-Pro cornerback in Terrell Austin's system. And Terrell Austin is a former, was a defensive coordinator for the Lions, then the Bengals, became the Steelers DBs coach, and then got promoted to defensive coordinator. But the main aspect that Terrell Austin was, I think, brought to the table as a D coordinator was his ability to call complex coverage schemes. Now, we talked about this more on, I believe it was on yesterday's episode with Nick Farabaugh about what Terrell Austin could do and how they had to kind of be very vanilla last year because they had communication errors. Darius Slay is a guy who won't bring those communication errors. He knows where he's supposed to be. He's a savvy veteran. And I think it's going to be interesting to see him reunite with Terrell Austin in the same way Joey Porter Jr. is going to reunite with Gerald Alexander. Here was Darius Slay at Steelers OTAs, and we got a chance to talk to him about the different things that he faces. Also, you learn why no one calls him Darius. Everyone calls him Slay. Here's Darius Slay.
Terrell Austin's a defensive coordinator who's been a DB's coach. He specializes in several different types of coverage. What have those conversations been like as far as how how you're going to fit into those plans?
Just basically just playing ball. I had him when I was in Detroit. He got some of the similarities still here. But he has progressed a lot more. So, man, it's like old days. Getting back together, hanging out. So, he does a great job. Explaining in details, and the coaches do as well. So I'm just here to learn and keep learning.
Darius, how do you handle work? How do you handle working with the younger guy? Like, do you come out right away and start telling them things? Do you got to kind of ease into it a little bit?
Oh, no.
What's your process?
I just kind of come out and just be myself, hang around, just laugh, giggle, play around, talk to him. I'm one of the guys I'm going to go talk to you. I'm not afraid for you to wait to come talk to me. I'm coming to invade your space a little bit. So just learning each other, man, and understand it. And that's how you become better teammates, and that's how you understand each other on the field.
I'm curious, why just Slay?
Huh?
Why just Slay?
Well, that's what I just go by. And, I'm a junior, so everybody call my dad Darius. So I'm like, I'm Slay. Or you can call me Junior. And yeah, that's like Slay though. Slay doesn't sound like a lot better.
So there you have it. Darius Slay prefers just to go by Slay. And not that that's anything new. We knew that before. We talked about that on this show, but I thought it was refreshing to see him kind of explain it in real time on camera for you there. But let's dig more into what Darius Slay is talking about. He wants to get in the space of his fellow cornerbacks. I mean, listen, he had to do that last year. But the Eagles, remember, they drafted back-to-back cornerbacks in the earlier rounds, first and second rounds, in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and those guys became pivotal guys for the Eagles secondary. He basically knew they were his replacements, and he had to prioritize them, but he did help them. And again, I think it kind of showed with how Quinyon Mitchell, how well he fit into their secondary, and not fully crediting Darius Slay with this, but when it came to zone coverage, forced incompletions, according to Pro Football Focus, the leading guy in the NFL, Quinyon Mitchell, with 11 such enforced incompletions in zone coverage. The second leading guy, Darius Slay. So if he can help Joey Porter Jr. take those steps forward, that could go a long way to Darius Slay actually being a good mentor and being someone who helps along Joey Porter Jr. there, but also just helping this year as a guy that plays with him. And I wrote about this for the Post-Gazette, but it's going to be interesting to see both of these guys in the secondary at the same time. If Darius Slay is a guy who knows how to not get beat, who knows how to win most situations, uses instincts to stay in the position and to make the proper plays, that can go a long way to making his side of the field not get picked on. And if Joey Porter Jr. is putting things together on his side, that can go a long way to make his side not get picked on. And what have we been talking about for the past month or so with the potential of this secondary to try to get Minkah Fitzpatrick back to being a chance to be a playmaker on the ball? It's having that outside cornerback presence that people don't want to pick at too often, because both of those guys are going to break up passes or put you in tough spots. And that could be the vision of the future for the Steelers right now. Now, absolutely, the Steelers also need to define a long-term pair with their cornerback with Joey Porter Jr. And they also need to see if Joey Porter Jr. is the guy. Another guy that I don't think we asked enough questions about, and I kind of kicked myself as soon as the interview was over because I had to. I wanted to ask more, but we kind of got cut off there. But Corey Trice is another young cornerback the Steelers have on their roster, and I kind of wanted to know, how's Corey Trice been working with Darius Slay, or just talking to him, and what can Darius Slay impart with him? And Corey Trice, a bit different than Joey Porter Jr., a guy who has suffered a lot of injuries in his career. It's why he turned into a 7th round pick despite his build and his athleticism. And the Steelers then saw that in his first year when he got injured then. But if Corey Trice turns out to be that guy and he learns from it, that could be a big win. If Darius Slay can be the guy like he was for the Steelers, like he was for the Eagles, in the sense that, hey, he broke up a lot of passes, was often in position, wasn't getting burned for a lot of big plays. That can be a factor by itself that turns itself into being very, very useful in coverage, because again, when you're looking at what Darius Slay could bring to the table, if he's helping you in coverage and he's helped us develop 2 young cornerbacks that are looking to make their way in the NFL, that can help you in the long run. So that's going to be one of the biggest tasks, I think, for this secondary, is the development of Joey Porter Jr. A bonus would be the development of Corey Trice, but Darius Slay playing a factor in that. He can sort of be an extra coach's set of eyes on the field for Jared Alexander to kind of play the way of the style of football the Steelers want. And also, eliminating those coverage issues that they had last year. Because remember, they had a lot of coverage busts at the end of the season. And granted, several of those coverage busts were specifically because of Cam Sutton just being in the wrong place, wrong time, or completely misplaying a position when he was in position to win a play, and he just didn't make it happen. So I think that's going to be one of the bigger storylines of this year. We talk a lot about the offensive line. This cornerback room is another big part of the Steelers puzzle that they need to put together. And it's going to be a savvy 13-year vet and a third-year cornerback that are going to be at the faces of that progression. We'll see how they handle it moving forward. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I talked yesterday about Broderick Jones and Troy Fautano with Nick Farabaugh. Now you get to hear from Broderick Jones himself, what he worked on, and how he lost weight as part of his plan to get better this season. We'll talk about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our episode here on this Thursday after the Steelers completed day 2 of OTAs. Let's talk about what the plan is for the Steelers moving forward at offensive tackle, because Broderick Jones is we talked about him and Troy Fautano. Broderick Jones is now at left tackle. Troy Fautano is at right. They get a chance to both be at their natural positions. And we talked a lot about this with Nick Farabaugh as far as their impact of things. But Broderick Jones, as I noted to Nick, he looked leaner, and he noted when I asked him about it that, yeah, he's down about 20 pounds or so from where he was last year. And he'll put some more of that weight on as the season rolls along and in training rolls along, but definitely not all of it. And it seems to me that it's part of his plan to be in better shape, to be better at the fundamentals and getting his footwork right, his hand placement right, and not getting as tired throughout games to make as many mental mistakes. But let you hear it from Broderick Jones himself. Here was earlier on Wednesday when we got to ask him a few questions, both about him playing. It's the first question is about him playing on the left side, the benefits of it, and his familiarity with it. But then eventually we get into his plan to lose weight and other things that he's doing to get better for 2025. Here's Steelers offensive tackle Broderick Jones.
For you being back on the left side?
It does.
What's the maybe best thing about going back there for you? Did it feel like riding a bike kind of a thing?
At first it did, but when they initially moved me to right tackle and I played it for so long, and then they tried to make me like the swing tackle, it was kind of funky. But I knew I would be going back to left. So this offseason, I just tried to, focus on nothing but the left side. Just continue to work that way. Just to try and get back the feel of the positioning.
Broderick, you look a little bit leaner. Did you work on transforming your body at all? You look a little bit leaner this year. Did you work on anything to change your body at all this year?
Yeah, I wanted to come back a little leaner just because it gives me a chance to gain weight, going into the training camp and throughout the season, and instead of coming back heavy and then having to lose weight just to gain it back. It's just a hard process. So, I just wanted to focus on coming back at a good enough weight to where I can maintain but also gain if I have to. So,
how much do you say you weigh right now?
I think I'm 305, 310-ish, somewhere in that range. Last year I played at 325, 330.
What did you do to lose some weight?
Just working out, sauna.
Where's confidence, Broderick?
Confidence is always high. Getting back on the left, I feel like it's a bigger boost for me. Just because I've been used to playing on the left side. So, being out here going against people like Alex and Nick, it really helps with the confidence level. When you're able to block guys like that, you feel like you can do it at any level versus anybody.
What's it been like working with Troy so far, having him on the right
Man,
side?
Troy's good. They try not to push him too much because he's still trying to work his way back. But Troy's looking amazing.
So, of several things there from Broderick Jones. One, he's familiar with the left side. As we talked about, since he's been in the NFL, he's been giving up a pressure every 12.8 pass protection snaps he's been in. That's a very bad rate. That's not what you want at all. It's unacceptable for the future if he's going to be a pillar for this Steelers offense, or even a starter for the Steelers offense at offensive tackle moving forward. But again, in college, he averaged closer to 37.3 snaps per every time that he gave up a a pressure on the quarterback. So that's where I think the Steelers could see a better version of Broderick Jones if he's there. But he's doubling down and not just relying on, hey, I'm going to be at the position that I'm going to be most familiar with. He's also going to be healthier, or well, I guess not healthier is not the word, but he's going to be lighter. He's going to be, I think he's going to be leaner. He's going to be, and that's a big part of what he's projecting in. Offensive linemen need to be big. It's part of their position. You need the strength. You need the size. You need the weight. You need the strength to be able to hold it down. It all plays into the factors of when you're trying to bully opponents, but you also need to combine that with your athleticism. And part of figuring out how you need to approach things is part of the experience that you get in the NFL. People have an idea of how you want to prepare your body, health wise and training wise from your college years, but it's different in the NFL. And, a case in example or point example was Stephon Tuitt. I remember covering Stephon Tuitt. He would come into training camp some years and he'd come in heavier to figure out, I'll lose weight throughout the season. Or sometimes he came in lighter and he'd gain weight throughout to get ready for the season. And that's where, and eventually he found his rhythm as far as, hey, this is the weight I want to come in at. This is the way I'm going to play at. This is the way I want to work towards. And that's when he sort of found his comfort zone and became a really good player for the Steelers before his career ended, sadly, a little bit early. But with Broderick Jones, he's figuring that out himself. And again, Broderick Jones is younger than any of the Steelers offensive linemen that they've drafted in the Omar Khan tenure, because remember, Troy Fautanu is coming to the league with more playing experience. He's older than Broderick Jones right now, as are Zach Frazier and Mason McCormick. And that's where Broderick Jones could be the pillar piece for the Steelers. If he's not just the really good player, but he's also the really young player that they could invest in long term to be the guy that could at that position. If he turns out to be the guy, it does so much for this Steelers offense. Not only will they get better pass protection, and again, he doesn't need to be 37.3 snaps per pressure. That'd be great if he was. That starts to put him in the upper tier category of all offensive tackles right away. And you eventually want him to get there. But if he's in the mid to high 20s, that's going to be a much more acceptable rate and even a good rate, because then he's giving on average maybe 2 pressures per game, because you're usually doing around 60 snaps per game, and that's pretty solid right there. And again, those are pass protection. So that's actually more like 2 snaps per two pressures per game, or even less, because you're probably not going to be throwing the ball 60 times in the game. So point being, if Broderick Jones can be that guy who gets better at his footwork, gets better at his handwork, and is fitting more into his body easily as the offseason rolls into training camp, and then training camp rolls into the season, that could go a long way to making him the Steelers left tackle of the future and the prototypical tackle that they drafted him to be when Omar Khan made his first pick of his tenure as GM back in 2023. A lot of this depends on the Steelers offensive line. A lot of this season and the future depends on the Steelers offensive line moving forward and becoming a truly elite unit in the next few years. If he's able to take those first steps forward, I think it will start to change the tenor and the tone of where the Steelers are headed. I think part of what the Steelers, and why so many people nationally don't believe in the Steelers beyond just the quarterback position, is because there hasn't been that young group that has emerged to become one of those top part of the top tier of players at their positions, outside of, since really TJ Watt really became that guy, and Alex Highsmith really raised up to be that area. And that's where it's going to come in for especially these 2023 guys, bringing it back to Joey Porter Jr. And I'd also throw Keanu Benton in that situation. If those 3 in particular, we're going to harp on this a lot throughout the season and the offseason, if those 3 in particular can become key players for the Steelers, who become pillar players moving forward, or at least 2 out of the 3, it will go a long way to the Steelers' return to being a nationally relevant threat, to actually be a Super Bowl threat in the NFL. That's where I think that the Steelers really need help the most. And if Broderick Jones is the first step of that, it'll go a long way. But again, they need that from Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr., Keanu Benton, and some other guys. But if they get that class together and people start to see this group start to emerge, I think other guys will start to follow suit. I think you'll see a building of confidence with the young guys, and you'll also see a forming of a new Steelers nucleus and new Steelers culture about winning around it. And that's going to be a big part of why this year is important. It's also a big part of why you don't tank, as we continue to answer questions. People think, why don't the Steelers tank? It's so that you continue developing players and you continue building core players for the future, so that when you do have that window open because of a quarterback or anyone else, you're actually ready, because you've been developing so many different players across the roster. And Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr., Keanu Benton, all part of that nucleus they're hoping to be part of their future very soon. That's all for today, but we got one more day of Steelers OTAs today, this Thursday, and then we're going to be talking more about them for the Friday episode and what we saw at the end of the week here of the first week of OTAs for the Steelers. And also, who knows, maybe we'll hear some more Aaron Rodgers news before the weekend if anything happens there. But keep all of that here with the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky. All the social media, same handle and everywhere. It's at Carter Critiques. You can also read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. You can find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down the Pittsburgh Steelers. Check me out here tomorrow for our next episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast.